Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata cha Pita Twameva Twameva Bandhuscha Sakha Twameva Twameva Vidya Dravindam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Bhadram Karnevi Shrinuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhirya Jatraha Sthiraya Rangaishtushtuvagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemi Swasti no brahaspatir dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this morning we start the fourth Prashna, the fourth question. Ata Chatush Prashna. Now we do the fourth question. So quick review. The first question, where does all this come from? So out of consciousness itself.
Could I interrupt for actually on the number 8, query 3?
Oh, okay. I thought we finished it.
Not quite.
Anyway, well, let me review anyway. Okay. So in the first question, where does all this come from? Out of Brahman, out of consciousness, comes the first image, the first impulse, which is Prajapati. It's the term that's used in the scripture. The grandfather of everything, the creator God, sometimes called Brahma, sometimes called Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg. Sometimes Ishvara, we can call it the Lord. And then that divides into two, energy and matter. And all of this, including time and space. Everything is the interaction of matter and energy. Second question. What is it that is the Lord, or the most important of all the devas, the devatas? And remember, in scripture, deva, which means a god, comes from the root div, to shine. Usually has one of three meanings. The presiding principles of nature, the various sense organs, and then later on we'll see it as the presiding principle over a field of human endeavor. Here it's about the various properties of a human being: seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, emoting, thinking, and even the ego. And we had the allegory, remember? Each one of us says, I'm more important than anybody else. And Prana says, oh, really? Well, I think I'm going to leave the body. And they all had to go too. So the Prana is the governing principle of all our senses. It enlivens everything. And it's intelligent. Now, intelligence is different than sentience. Sentience means the awaring principle. Intelligence means there's a way in which things happen, move together, do things that is organized so that cells know how to divide. The whole universe is so beautifully intelligent. The mathematics of it, the physics of it. So prana is the major thing. We had some intimations about the whole idea of what happens when a person dies. The prana takes all the elements of the antakarana, the subtle body, 5 organs of action, 5 organs of knowledge, which we experience in a dream. So you see they have a subtle form. The prana itself, the mind, the intellect, chitta, memory, ahankriti, egoism, and the vasanas. Out they go. And then in the third question, we've been discussing how does this prana work in the individual? And we were introduced to the notion of the Panchavayu, the 5 subtle airs. So there's the main prana, which governs our basic perceptions of seeing and hearing and stuff like that, and the breath. Second one, apana, elimination, pooping and peeing. Also is about the elimination of unneeded things in our life. And I can let go of some issue. That's my apana. Then samana. Sama because it's between the head and the nether parts. But here it means digestion, how food is eaten, digested, and then all those nutrients are sent to every part of the body. Vyana, circulation. And it's not just the circulation of blood. We had our introduction to the whole idea of the nadis, these subtle energy channels, kind of like the nervous system, but even more subtle. We begin to have the notion where the energy is centered in the heart, just like the circulatory system, and that energy of jnana goes everywhere in the body. So those of us who've done energy work like Reiki, or with martial arts like Tai Chi Chuan or Aikido, that Chi or that Ki, jnana, it's the prana, it's the energy. And the last one, Udana, Normally we say Udana governs our thinking, but we also discuss two of the more subtle forms of it. The first, in meditation, energy rises above the body, out of the Sahasrara chakra, the crown chakra. We have this direct experience, this knowledge that I am. And then it also is our ejection seat. When the body is all worn out, Udana pushes the red ejection seat button. Out goes the subtle body from the physical body. And there's just a lump of clay left there. And the subtle body then goes to its various lokas, depending on its punya and papa. If it goes to Swarga, Punya Loka, heavenly realms, works out the good karmas, you get super sensuous things. If you've been a person who's been a jerk this lifetime overall, you have Papaloka, Naraka. You go to the hellish worlds. Now, you don't have to think of these as places either. A whole other understanding is it all happens right here and now in this very life. And then when there's a balance between the punya and the papam, we return to the world of people, Manushya Loka. We get to see what we learn all over again. So I was mistaken. I thought we'd finished this question, but Mark says we're on the 8th mantra. So Amini, can you help us out with mantra 8 in question 3?
Yes. Just to make sure, this is page 132, right?
I don't know.
Anybody who has the book?
130.
130? Oh.
Well, I guess as long as we have the same book.
Oh, right.
But yeah, this is.
It starts with Adityo Havai.
Okay, yes, thank you. All right. Adityo Havai Pahyah Prana Udayati Esha Henam Chakshusam Pranam Anugrahananaha Prithvyam Ya Devata Saisha Purushasya Apanam Avastabhyantara Yadakashaha Sasamano Vayurvyanaha. The sun is verily the outer cosmic prana. This sun favoring prana, which is residing in the eyes, rises up. The goddess of earth attracts and controls the apana of the being. The interspace between the earth and the sun is the samana. The air, wind, is the vyana.
So now Pipalada is saying we've looked at the microcosmic movement of the prana in the human body. Now we're going to look at the prana as it moves cosmically. And again, these are all metaphors. So the main prana, what is the life-giving energy for the world? It's the sun. And then because they thought the moon was a cooling force, the apana is thought to be the world, or the moon, rather. And then what is between them? Akasha, space. And then let's see, I'm having a senior moment here. What was the earth? That was the samana? No, not samana.
The interspace between the earth and the sun is the samana.
Yes.
Yes.
And then the vyana, that's the priti, that's the earth.
I don't know if it named it. It just said the goddess Earth attracts and controls the apana.
The earth. Okay, yes. Then I'm read the whole thing again. I've
Okay,
got
sure
myself
thing.
all confused.
The sun is verily the outer cosmic prana.
So the sun is the prana, that's the energy. The next one.
This sun, favoring prana, which is residing in the eyes, rises up. The goddess of earth attracts and controls the apana of the being.
Okay, so the earth is the downward movement. So things, whenever they finish living, they go back into earth. The next one.
The interspace between the earth and the sun is the samana.
Yes. So Akash is the space between the earth and the sun.
And then the air or wind is the vyana.
The vyana, yes. Okay. So that is what moves, just like the circulatory system in the body. So air moves in nature. Next one.
Tejo hava udanas tasmad upashanta tejaha punarbhavam indriyair manasi sampadyamanaihi. The external fire, as energy, indeed is udana. Therefore, he in whom the flames are gone out enters another body again, along with the senses absorbed in the mind.
Yes. So again, in this phenomenal world, the udana is fire. And what he then says for the person, the individual, when that udana has gone out, leaves the body, all the other pranas go with them, reinforcing that idea we talked about. So when the time for death arrives, now let's talk about this because it's very important. You get all these ideas like, oh, so and so is hanging on, they're clinging, they won't let go. It's nonsense. Yoga says you come in, and this whole life is based on your prarabdha karma, based on the force of your past punya and papa, past karmas. Nobody leaves a moment too soon. Nobody hangs on a moment too late. Now, oftentimes at the moment of death, one of the last things we do is create environments for the people around us to deal with some of their issues. When everything's done, out we go. So we there in the living world think we're so powerful. I can make people stay or go. So anyway, again, what happens? These elements of the subtle body, it's easy to understand what they are if you go to the dream state. You're in your subtle body in the dream state. And you have the 5 organs of action, hands, feet, tongue, anus, genitals, the 5 organs of knowledge, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. You have prana itself. You can run around in the dream. You have feelings, manas. You have thoughts, buddhi. You have memory, chitta. You have an ego, ankriti. And the whole thing is based on past impressions. That whole bundle is called the subtle body. That's what leaves the physical body at the moment of death. It is the udana. Go up the Sushumna, out the Sahasrara, and off you go to the loka that's appropriate for your particular karmic situation. Any thoughts on this?
So who's there judging where you go after you die?
Let me see if I can give a better example. If you don't swim well and you're in 4 feet of water, you're fine. If, on the other hand, you jump in the pool and it's 9 feet deep, who's judging that you should drown? Is there anybody judging you? No, it's the inevitable results of the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's nobody judging. There's just the inevitable results of circumstances. Let's take it into a worldly situation. So, you know, I work a lot with people who are in recovery. So before someone makes the decision to get clean and sober, usually their life is a show. You know, they have no money, they have no job, their wife or husband or significant other has tossed them out. They may have criminal things, DWI or DUI, I guess they call it now. All this stuff. No one judged them. Who did all this? They did. And to a person, it was bad luck. You know, I don't have a drinking problem, just bad luck that there was a cop there. That's what people think. I'm not making this up. Antithetically, if on the other hand, I was reading the bio of this kid, I just find him fascinating. His name is Ashwin Ramaswamy, 24 years old. He's running for state senate in Georgia. While he was in high school, he attended college at the same time. Went on and got an IT degree, I think a master's at Stanford. Ended up working for the federal government in cybersecurity for the 2020 election. Must have been very young. If he's 24 now, he was 20 then. While he was in Washington, went to Georgetown and got a JD, got a law degree. At 24 years of age, he's running for the state senate in Georgia. Who did all this? Is he lucky? Did someone judge him worthy to accomplish all these things?
Mm-hmm.
What's the answer?
No.
He did.
He did it. Now, he had opportunity, but he did the work. He could have decided to become a drug addict too, but he didn't do that. So, does that answer your question about who's doing the judging?
Mm-hmm.
We get the inevitable results of the actions we perform.
So what happens to someone like Swamiji or Ramana Maharshi at the time of their death?
That's a very good question. What the scriptures say for the person of realization. When the physical body dies, the elements, the physical elements go back to nature. The subtle body's elements, the tanmatras, they go back to nature. And what is left of the person? Nothing. But nothing happens to the self. And the subtle body is not the self. Now, in Gita, Lord Krishna says, when unrighteousness rises and righteousness declines, I incarnate. What's implied there, it is our longing that brings the avatar into existence. So many people have had the experience of feeling the presence of a guru who's passed. You go to Arunachala and you feel Bhagawan's presence. I've certainly felt Swamiji's. But it's my desire that's creating that. So we here, through our longing, can keep very subtle elements of those in place. But the realized person is Jivan Mukta. They're liberated. There is nothing left to cause incarnation. In Buddhism, they have the distinction between the bodhisattva and the arhat. Are these terms you've heard before?
Not arhat.
Bodhisattva takes a vow. I vow not to enter nirvana until all beings are enlightened. The number of beings is infinite. An arhat is someone who says, I'm exercising my escape clause. Now, we have to be very careful not to get attached to the idea, oh, this world, it's so full of woe, so full of pain. I can't wait to be liberated so I don't have to come back. That's subtle aversion. We must get to the place where we're willing to be here for the rest of eternity and willing to not be here for the rest of eternity. Then whether or not some form of the individuality shows up, that's up to God. None of my business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. Good question. Now, what do I know for sure? I can only share with you intimations of my own experience and what the scriptures say. All right, next mantra.
Jim, I also have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Okay. Discomfort and pain, is that prana or is that the gross body?
It depends on where it takes place. Mm-hmm. If your body hurts, that's the gross body. Mm-hmm. If your husband does something that annoys you and you're really mad at him, that's your subtle body.
Right. Okay, so it's almost like it can be the subtle body, but mostly it's the gross body. It depends on...
It depends, and frequently when we have discomfort in the body, we then also have mental resistance to it.
Right.
So one of the things that can alleviate a lot of physical distress is to quit fighting it.
Right. Yeah, I guess I asked the question because say somebody takes a painkiller, right? The pain is still there, but we aren't feeling it, which is why I wondered, is pain prana or is it the gross body or a little bit of both?
It's the interaction.
Yeah.
prana raincha.
Hmm.
So always the two together.
I see. Okay. All right. Got it.
All right, next mantra.
यच्चित्तस्तेनैष प्राणम् आयाति प्राणस्तेजसा युक्तः सहात्मना यथा संकल्पितं लोकं नयति. Whatever be his thoughts, he attains this prana along with those thoughts, and the prana, united with udana, together with jivatma, is led on to the world as thought of.
So we have this idea that, whatever your thoughts are at the moment of death, that's what determines what loka you go to and your next incarnation. It's not that simple. So there you are in the hospital bed, and you think, I've had a very pure life. And a nurse comes in and they're good looking, and you go, does that mean you're going to have to come back with some sort of gross lifetime because it, or go to a gross loka? No. What happens when we leave the physical body? Frequently, people will have an out of the body kind of experience. You look down, you see that body, maybe on the operating table, maybe there in the hospital room or at home. And then frequently there's a sense of a tunnel. And then people will come to help us. Sometimes there are relatives, people we've loved. Sometimes they're people we don't know. And then there's frequently a light. And then there's a judgment. And our whole life passes in front of us, which we have built thought by thought, action by action. So these thoughts at the moment of death are built through a lifetime. And what happens is what we think has been important, you see, is not so important. And what we thought may have been trivial, we see is very important. The money you've made, the successes you've acquired, the titles you have, your accomplishments mean very little. But the small acts of kindness we do for others with no sense of wanting anything in return, these are important. The time we've spent longing for God, doing sadhana, this is so some people get all worried about, I've got to be thinking the exact right thought at the moment of death. It isn't like that. It's a reactivity of the mind, and we build it through a lifetime. Build it through a lifetime. So don't worry so much about the moment of death. Pay attention to the moment now. But what they're saying is, because of the texture of our thoughts, which we built through a lifetime, this determines which loka we go to after we leave the body, and then also determines our next incarnation. Any thoughts on this? Now, you do not need to believe in reincarnation to get value from Vedanta. You can see it all as metaphor. for just one circumstance after another. So you may have been a single person. That's an incarnation. You meet a significant other. All of a sudden, everything shifts. All of that is done by your actions and thoughts and feelings. You may decide to get engaged and get married. New incarnation. You may decide to become parents. Oh, another very important incarnation. You may choose to go to school. You may choose to get another job. All of these we can see as different lokas, different incarnations, all of it built by choices we've made based on the force of the past. Any thoughts on this?
The commentary has like a interesting analogy. It's like to declare a profit is a sign of great business success of the year, but no businessman would ever be unbusinesslike throughout the year and still expect to declare a large profit at the close of the year.
Yes.
The balance sheet at the end depends upon the individual business items undertaken. Yeah, it says some other stuff, but I thought that was made sense.
Yes.
I don't get it.
So if you've been a good business person all year long, that's why your balance sheet is in the black at the end of the year. But if you've been a crappy business person, you've spent more than you take in.
Oh, right. Okay.
You can't say, I'm a successful business person unless you're Donald Trump. All right, next mantra.
Ya evam vidvan pranam veda nahasya prajahiyatem rito bhavati tad esha shlokaha. The wise man who knows the prana thus will not have to suffer. His offspring do not perish. He becomes immortal. That is stated in the following verse.
So here he's giving one of the things the Upanishads love to do, like any good salesperson, puts us in touch with the benefits of the product. So if we lead a good life, if we've understood that where we go after death and our next life is built by the thoughts and actions of this life. We go to Brahmalok, Punyalok, Swarga, a heaven-like place for a while. But then the next lifetime is based on. They don't worry. And again, the sanskaras we built in this life, we usually pass on to our children. So frequently in the culture today, we see it only in the negative situation. You know, for example, if you have an alcoholic parent, you've got a 50% chance of either becoming one or marrying one. Why would anybody marry an alcoholic? Because it's familiar. The mind prefers the familiar to the good. If someone is found and accused of being a child predator, the vast majority of the time, we find out that these predators are themselves adult victims of childhood sex abuse. Pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. But the positive things as well. If, for example, you are raised in a home where you get religious and spiritual sanskaras as a child, chances are you will pass that on to your children. So these impressions are frequently multi-generational. Not all the time, but frequently. So the idea here is your yoga goes with you. Your mind goes with you. Bank account doesn't, but your yoga does. Next mantra.
उत्पत्तिम् आयतिं स्थानं विभुत्वं चैव पञ्चधा अध्यात्मं चैव प्राणस्य विज्ञायामृतम् अश्नुते विज्ञायामृतम् अश्नुत इति. He who knows the origin, the entry, the seat, the all-pervasiveness, the five-fold distribution of prana, and the internal state in the body obtains immortality. Yes, he obtains immortality.
Yes. So the implication here is not if I do my Raja Yoga and do asana and I do pranayama and I know where all the energy goes and I develop control over all this, that's going to make me immortal. No. It will give you mastery of this world. There's probably nothing in the tradition that will maximize health than asana and pranayama and serenity. But the main point of these first three chapters is for us to be able to see this is what we call Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. Prakriti, nature, the phenomenal world. Paramatma, the lower self. Why is it important? So we can see I am not that. It implies that we're going to be entering into Atmanan Atman Vivechana, the discrimination between self and the not self. So we thoroughly have now understood the not self. In our next question, we're going to start to explore what is beyond this world of the Prajapati. Is that the last mantra?
Yep. Iti tritiya prashnaha. Here ends the third prashna.
Okay. Chatush prashna. Ata.
So Prajapati is equivalent to like the Abrahamic god.
I'm loath to draw cultural parallels, but close to it. In the Abrahamic religions, by and large, it's inherently dualistic. There's a creator who's separate from the creation. And in that creation, there are creatures called people. So the one thing in the Abrahamic religions you need to know is one thing you need to know about God is you're not it. But yes, the idea in the Abrahamic religions, it's monotheistic. There's only one God. In the end, Vedanta is not monotheistic. It is monistic. What is the difference between monotheism and monism? Monotheism says there's only one God. Monism says there's only God. Mm-hmm. Making sense? Mm-hmm. Good question. All right.
All right.
Fourth chapter.
Atahainam suryayani gargyah papracha bhagavanne tasmin purushe kani swapanti kanyasmin jagrati tatara esha devaha swapnan pashyati kasyaitat sukham bhavati kasminnu sarve sampratishta bhavantiti. Then Gargya, the grandson of Surya, questioned him, O Bhagavan, who are they that sleep in man? Who again are awake in him? What is the Devata who sees the dream? Whose is this happiness? On which do all these indeed depend?
So we're going to begin to understand the mind states that the chitta, the stuff of mind, moves through. And what is it that is beyond the states of mind? And we're going to begin to uncover the truth about happiness. Now, in this phenomenal world, 99.99999% of all the people in the world follow the path of bhoga. Bhoga means enjoyment. And there is usually an unexamined philosophical position behind it, which is this: happiness is inherent in certain people, places, things, and conditions. And if you want to be happy, what you do is get, acquire, experience as many of those people, places, things, and conditions as possible. And when things antithetical to that happen, get rid of them. That's called bhoga. It's really simple. Getting what you want makes you happy. Not getting what you want makes you unhappy. What's there to know about this? That's how the normal, ordinary person in ignorance thinks. Great rishis examined experience of happiness deeply. Well, that's actually not what really happens. So let's move forward and see what Pipalada has to say about it. Going on.
All right, this one is very long, so.
That's all right. You're very good at chanting.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying. Tasmai sahovacha yata gargya marichayor kasyatam gachatah सर्वा एतस्मिंस्तेजो मण्डल एकीभवन्ति ताः पुनः पुनरुदयतः प्रचरन्त्येवं हवै तत्सर्वं परे देवे मनस्येकीभवति तेन तर्ह्येष पुरुषो न शृणोति न पश्यति न जिघ्रति न रसयते न स्पृशते नाभिवदते नादत्ते नानन्दयते न विसृजते नेयायते स्वपितीत्याचक्षते. He replied, O Gargya, just as the rays of the sun, when sun sets, become one in that disk of light, and they come forth again when the sun rises again, in the same way, all these senses become one in mind, which is the highest deva. At that time, this man no more hears, sees, smells, tastes, or feels the touch, nor does he speak, nor take, nor enjoy, nor evacuate, nor move, and thus they say that he sleeps.
So, here we have in the language of poetry, with an ancient allegory, it doesn't serve too much in our modern times. What happens when a person goes to sleep? So the idea of the ancients is the sun is sending out all its rays during the day, and at night it goes to sleep, it sinks down below the horizon. If you travel to the end of the world and you look over, you see the sun's bed. And then next day, sun gets out of bed and his rays come out again. Poetry. But for a human being, what happens when we go to sleep? Well, from the standpoint of the physical body, the pranas remain, meaning I continue to breathe. If you have a baby, you put a diaper on the baby at night. Why do you put a diaper on the baby at night?
Because it still poops.
It still poops. The blood circulates. If it was nursing before it went to sleep, it's going to digest. But the mind has gone through a change. Eyes closed. And subjectively, what happens? My perceptions all gather into what we call the avyakta, the unmanifest. Now, as I've said many times, I have this habit. 11 o'clock, frequently I'll turn on Channel 5 News with every intention of watching Stephen Colbert at 11:30. And at 2:30, I wake up because some loud thing is on the TV, and I get up, turn off the TV, and go to bed. So at 11:35, Stephen Colbert is on. He's doing his monologue, we're playing music, he's having his guests. But if I'm in deep sleep, the sound is reaching my ears. The eardrum is vibrating, that goes to the cochlea. What's my experience? all the energy of perception has been gathered into this deep, dark, delicious, total ignorance of deep sleep. This, in other scriptures, is called the Anandamaya Kosha. Ananda means bliss. Maya, here with a short a, means comprised of. So the sheath that's comprised of pure bliss. Why? Because in that state, there's no evil. And there's no phenomenal world perceived. And there's no thinking. I don't mean the dream state. I mean the deep sleep state. There's nothing. The pure bliss of deep sleep. Now, this is also the state of pure vasana. The impressions are still there. Because you wake up in the morning and then they sprout and you have the continuity from the day before. But many of us think, well, Jim, I'm unconscious in deep sleep. And what this prashna is going to reveal to us is, actually, no, you're not unconscious. You are conscious of pure ignorance. Let me give a worldly example. Can you see that there's a phone in my hand? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see there's no phone in my hand?
Mm-hmm.
So you can have positive awareness of the absence of the phone in my hand. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Presence of an object, I know it. Presence of no object, I know it. Look around the room. You know the objects in the room. Close your eyes. Are you blind?
Mm-hmm.
No. You are seeing the back of your eyelids. You are seeing the darkness that the closing of your eyes has occluded the world. But you're still there. Open your eyes, you see the room. Close your eyes, you see darkness. You are not unconscious in deep sleep. You are seeing the darkness of the mind all folded up. And I can prove it to you. We prove it with what we call the law of memory. The law of memory is you cannot remember something you haven't experienced. Did you guys have breakfast this morning? Did I have breakfast this morning?
I don't know.
Why not?
Because that was you.
You weren't there. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you sleep well last night?
Yeah.
Did I sleep well last night?
I don't know.
Why not?
Because I wasn't there.
Exactly. So the fact that you can know I slept well last night. I went to sleep on my right side. I woke up in the same position. I slept so soundly. Nothing happened. The world was gone. And then there's what we call Vasanananda. Snooze alarm bliss. You wake up. I woke up this morning at about 7:40. hit the alarm thing to check the time. I have a talking clock. 7:47. About 20 minutes. Hear the rain outside. Then I'm thinking, I have class this morning. I need to get up. I gotta call my family. I gotta make some coffee. I need to pee. I really have to get out of bed. Oh, I don't want to. Jen, you gotta get up. What happens to the bliss, the residual of deep sleep? It's like the mist being evaporated by the sun in the morning. It's gone. And then my day started. So what it shows us is when the mind is freed from egoism, from sense perception, and the thinking and feeling that engenders, it is blissful. Now, we experience this Anandamaya Kosha in two states. Here, the Upanishad is talking about the state of deep sleep. We also experience it partially when I satisfy a desire. When I want something I don't have, the mind is under the throes of this Vikshepa Shakti, this projecting power, Raga. I want, passion for things. Tama, craving. Spriha, longing. Vancha, wanting. Sangraha, attachment. All of that is some level of low-level disquiet up to real suffering. Depends on the intensity. How badly do I want something, and how unavailable it is. When I get what I want, that craving goes away momentarily. It's what we call pramoda, the point of pleasure. Desire, object and desire become one. Oh, yeah. And in my ignorance, I attribute the ananda to the person, place, thing, or situation. I do not know that I am temporarily induced to some degree the state of mindlessness, freed from craving, without the tyranny of struggle. It is fully experienced in deep sleep. It is partially experienced. Satisfy a desire. What the Upanishad is going to bring home to us, because the self is bliss absolute, the mind can be blissful. Any questions about this? So the bhogi, the one who lives the world as an enjoyer, has this philosophical position. get as many of the toys in the world as I can. It's all about cash and prizes, more, better, different, more, better, different. And if you're mature and have some capacity for reflection, the teacher says, how's that working out for you? $0.95 of work for 5 cents worth of pleasure. That's what I say. The yogi also wants happiness, but she engages in a mode of living which reduces the number of desires entertained. And the mind more easily can come home, abide in the sound. That's the deep meaning of this image. Hanuman. He thinks he's just a monkey. He is incredibly powerful. He can carry mountains, fly through the air. Hanuman is the mind. Ram is not some external god. Rama is the self. So in this very famous image, Hanuman, the mind, is at peace and satisfied in the embrace of the self. We call it Atmaramana. I got it in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Reveling in the self. Brahmananda rasa, the juice, the taste of the bliss. In Shankara's very famous hymn, Yavana Shataka, one of the verses, or each verse ends with the refrain, Chidananda Rupaham, I'm of the form of bliss consciousness. So our first understanding and introduction to this will be to see how what happens in deep sleep, where the elements necessary for misery, egoism, a goal, and the compulsion to struggle, is gone temporarily. The mind gets to rest in the lap of the mother. So, what happens in deep sleep? All the perceptions, the mind, intellect, and ego are gathered into the Anandamaya Kosha, the Avyakta, deep sleep. Sushupta. Next, mantra. How are we doing on time? Okay, we can do one more.
Okay.
Actually, no. These are so important, so dense. We've only got a couple of minutes. So okay. We're on number 3 for next week?
Yes.
All right. So any questions about what we've covered? This is really important stuff. And there's a practice that I want to give you. We start, of course, as we always do, with Sakshi Bhav. Take on the attitude of the witness of your interior experience. And you are to notice 2 things. Notice, what does it feel like to want something I don't have? See if you can see that this longing, this craving, this attachment, this control issues, that first of all, it hurts. That is my dukkha. That's my suffering. And see if you can see, no, it's not out there. It's the wanting itself that's painful. Then do your best to pay attention to when you satisfy a desire. Note, I haven't said to change any of your behavior. Pay attention to your happiness, your pleasure. It always tastes the same to the mind. It will vary in intensity and duration. But happiness is happiness. I know when I'm happy. I know when it sucks. I know when it's cool. And notice in deep sleep how pleasurable. You want to own your suffering and own your own. Any thoughts on this frame and the practice that's implied? Why do we spend so much time with it? Because the key to freedom is mature renunciation. And mature renunciation is never accomplished by some act of willpower based on a moral idea. I promise you, it will fall, it will fail. You'll go back to the world. But true renunciation, real detachment, is a function of insight. When I begin to see what's really causing my suffering, then I develop the desire to be free from desire. That sets us up. Any thoughts about this? Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari